guess what? I realized why France, especially France, but also UK, are so hell-bent for leather to crush Russia, though they don't have anything to crush them with. I realized that World War II actually was speeding up the fight for independence in those countries that were colonies of Britain, France, Belgium, even Germany had a colony, I think Namibia, and so on. Netherlands, don't forget Netherlands. And these things had already started before World War II, but colonial powers were strong at that time, and the World War II weakened them. It also made all the colonies really speeding up their fight for independence. And for example, India got independence in 47, just 2 years after World War II. Britain was a colonizer. Viet Nam declared independence in 45 or 46 from France, but then the French came back and tried to take it back. But they were too weak after World War II. They had a war, I think, till 1950, and it was brutal, very brutal. And then there is Indonesia. They also declared independence in 45. The Dutch came back, but they too couldn't handle it. And then there's Africa. The first black Africa country that got its independence was Ghana in 1957. And then the others followed. It means actually that France and Britain lost their empire status. And of course, they still think that they're powerful. I mean, they're pretending. They know they aren't. Now, we come to France. Macron is very, he's mad at Russia. Because Russia is actually USSR was helping a lot of these colonies to get independence and help them after they got independence. But the French had made an agreement with all these colonies, financial, that still actually made them totally depending on France. Now they're breaking out, and one of the, I think it was Niger or Mali, and then Burkina Faso, which is a wonderful example of this. And Russia is helping them. So France is losing the last grip on their former colonies, the financial grip on them. And France, quite honestly, has been living very high, or has been surviving, on the money they got from the so-called independent former colonies. And now it looks really bad, because more and more of these former French colonies are saying, no way, no more. no more. We break out of this monetary union with France. And Burkina Faso is, anyway, they're taking over all these foreign-run, foreign-owned companies that were taking all their treasures out of the country with maybe a couple of percentage of the profit given kindly to the poor Africans. And they're saying no more, no more. The state owns it. And Burkina Faso has now education is free all the way from kindergarten, university, and they are developing their agriculture. They have taken over the mines and so on. And France, they see the writing on the wall. They are really, really, really losing power, losing money, power, influence, money, and their budget for the country is getting smaller and smaller. At the same time, of course, we know that the EU hasn't been very good economically for the European countries and members of the sanctions against Russia, which hurt Europe more than Russia. Actually, European economy went down, or is going down, and Russia went up. So that was the sanctions, and that meant also no cheap oil and gas, and so economy is not very good in Europe. For France, they're losing the money from their former colonies in Africa, and so they're becoming poorer and poorer very fast. Russia is helping. Actually, USSR already way back then, I think more or less from 57 or something like that, has been helping Africa a lot. And they were also helping Vietnam with the war against the Americans. And so it's like, it's kind of, Russia has been, since the revolution, has been fighting for real sovereignty and getting their country industrialized and technology up and running for real modern technology and so on and so forth. And they had this collapse of the Soviet Union, and the 90s were very bad. And then from 99, when Putin became the president, or first the prime minister, it's been going up and up and up. And now the economy is very good. Their technology is very good. Their military is excellent. Their weapons are super. And so on and so forth. And they are helping, they have this, I think it's the same spirit, the wish to be sovereign, to be free of influence from others, is what Russia is actually fighting for. And free of suppression, free to trade with anybody, free to do what they want to do, not be told by others. And that is exactly the same thing with the former colonies. They got independence in quotation marks because they were still made very depending on the former masters. But now they are beginning to get real independence, real sovereignty. And that is where Russia and the former colonies have something essential in common. They understand one another. And it's the same with Vietnam. They were the only power country that helped Vietnam in the war, in what the Vietnamese call the American War in Vietnam. They were fighting for sovereignty, for freedom, to do things the way they wanted to do it. And anyway, to come back to the lost empire status of Britain and France is, I think, apart from the history for hundreds of years, right now, at this moment, is what drives them to want to fight Russia and break Russia, break this power, and so on. I think you get what I mean. And that is so interesting because Russia won really World War II because they were the ones that really smashed the Germans. And when the war started in 1939-40, the British was hoping that they would smash Russia. Instead, it was Russia that smashed Germany. So anyway, they're mad at Russia, but they're really mad at themselves because they can't get used to the new status where whatever they do, they have to actually produce themselves. They can't rip off other countries anymore. All the tales about, how they're superior to everybody else. They have to get used to treat everybody as their equal. With respect. That's a big change after 500 years of treating people and making stories up to justify that they treat people worse than animals. So, I'm so happy that this is happening. I can't find words for how happy I am, because I have been to many of these countries and I have worked several years in some of them. I've visited them. I've worked several years or months or weeks or days in about 10 countries in Africa and about 10 in East Asia. And I know them for, like I've said this before in videos, for 45 years I was out there working social work, talk with people at all levels. I've seen how they live at all levels. I've heard about their family stories and the history of the country from them, heard them tell the history of their country. And for example, Indonesia, the 350 years, the Dutch were the colonial power there, and why the laws in Indonesia are as they are today to prevent that this happens again, etc. So for me, the reason actually I went to Africa was in 1955, I saw a film from the US about the race problem and between white and black, and they could marry and all that kind of thing. And I was shocked. I was only 14 years. I was shocked. I was so shocked. This is not right. Everybody should be free to marry the one they want, irrespective of, you know, whatever, the race, the culture, the religion, the whatever. So I was 14 and I decided to find out more about this, and so I did. And then when I went to Germany and I studied in 63 to 65, I met African students, and they told me about their countries. Like 63, 4, 5 was only a few years later than Ghana had got their independence. So I heard everything about Kwame Nkrumah, and I read his books. And then when I had been trained, I worked 2 years in Denmark, and then I went to Africa to work there on social work. I did, and that was the beginning. 67, I was there last time, 91, I think. I worked in Uganda for almost 8 years, and Somalia almost 1.5 years or something. But then I visited different countries and did very short projects, missions, and so on. All social work. So I have been there and I understand a bit about their problems and their potential and their wonderful culture, and they're very alive, very, very alive. And for me, that it's actually happening now. It's wonderful. It is so wonderful. And Russia already love it so much for its history, the people, the culture, the country, the nature, and that they have actually been helping the people that I also wanted to help. It's just fantastic. I'm just realizing how it all fits together. France and Britain lost their empire status. And if we go, let's say we go to UN Security Council, there they are still treated as if they were powerful countries because once upon a time they were an empire. They were empires, but they're not powerful and they're not big anymore. And we really need to have a variety of countries from different continents and regions on the Security Council, and not a majority from the Western world and treating France and UK, Britain, as if they were very important, powerful countries. So that was my little realization. But it was very funny because I started laughing when I realized, oh my God, that's why France is so mad at Russia, because they're losing very fast their power in the former French colonies. And of course, Britain being Britain, it will take them many years before they can come to terms with the fact that they are not an empire anymore. Yeah, it's very interesting. And for sure, when you work so many years in so many countries at all levels of society, you learn a lot. You get a lot. You understand a lot. What I learned in this country is about life. Yeah. I wouldn't have learned that if I had stayed here at home. So, I have a little bit of a different viewpoint than our present government and the leadership, so-called leadership of the EU. I have a very different viewpoint because I know what is out there. Anyway, that is that. So, that was it for today. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.